data. And apparently there are some others who they don't think concerned them or, are concerned about the empirical data. But I was thinking this morning as I was listening to this discussion of a man who owns and operates a donkey cart and makes his living that way. And he's very concerned about empirical data, of course, has to be. And he's discussing how he did this year with his donkey cart. And he says, well, towards the earlier in the year, a couple of, the parts of the frame of the donkey cart were broken. And it caused a little bit of a problem because, some of the goods that we carried around were tending to drop out at that spot, and we had to do something about it. And it was not until a little later in the year that we were able to get the lumber and have the work done and repair the cart and get it back into functioning condition. And then, the donkey had a little sore foot there, a little sore on its leg, and it seemed to be giving it a bit of a problem. It couldn't move around as fast, and we therefore couldn't make as many trips as we would have hoped to do. But it looks as if the sore is getting better, and we expect that next year, with the cart repaired and the donkey's sore foot healed, we might be able to. We're going to do maybe as much as 5 or 6% more than we were able to do this year. Reasonably intelligent discussion, taking account of the empirical data. But what about the possibility of a discussion about how do we move on from the donkey cart to getting a truck that would carry far more goods than the donkey cart could carry, far more quickly, and would allow us to make a much better income. Total an improvement, not just of degree, but almost one of kind, a totally different kind of economy, which would yield better conditions, better opportunities for people. That is one of the problems that I have with the economic discussions that I hear going on. People are talking about the Jamaican economy as if it is a given. This is what it is. And we can talk about minor adjustments, the rate of inflation this year, and the budget deficit, and the level of the NIR, which we borrow and paying high rates of interest on and stack up in the Bank of, not in the Bank of Jamaica, we're placing it elsewhere in the world and making a little interest on it, but not quite as much as we are paying for it. And so on. We can discuss those things, and if the NIR is grown a little bit and the debt to GDP ratio has gone down a little bit, and the budget deficit is not quite what it was last year or the year before, and so on and so forth. We feel that things are looking better, and that maybe we'll see some growth next year. This is, it's an inadequate approach to the problem. Fine. We have to discuss those issues. But aren't we also going to discuss the issue of whether we have to continue limping along with a sore-foot donkey and a donkey cart, or whether we can graduate to the point where we can employ the higher levels of technology available in they were in the 21st century, and create better opportunities for our people, better quality of life for them, where we can have a decent health sector. We can get rid of the problem of crime that we have. I see a man in the Observer writing an article criticizing me for saying that things are falling apart in Jamaica. And at one point in the article, he's, commenting that murders have gone down 25%. Murders have gone down 25% this year, right? There's an element of nonsense in this. Fine. Murders have gone down. Let us say that it is true that murders have gone down 25%. I'm not sure that it is, because I don't know that our statistics, the statistics we produce in this country, are reliable. But let us suppose that that murders did go down 25%. We have seen murders shooting up in November, well above what they were in November last year, right? And it is clear that we do not have murder under control, in the sense that it is coming down, and maybe we can look forward one day to in reasonable time, to having 5 or 10 or so murders in Jamaica for a year, if as many. We're not thinking if murders come down 25%, while they're largely because there are fewer, so they tell us, fewer murders in the corporate area. But they're shooting up in St. James, right? And elsewhere. And it is clear that we don't have the situation under control because we have not organized the kind of society in which people can go about and have the hope of living decent lives and wouldn't want to jeopardize themselves, and they believe that there is a system of justice that they can apply to, and if they think they've been done an injustice, they don't have to go get a gun or a knife and stab somebody or shoot somebody, right? There is a system, an order to which they can apply and have things rectified and justice done and so on. We don't have that kind of society. Right? And we are discussing our economic issues. We're patterning our discussion on the kind of discussion that takes place in countries like the United States and possibly Bermuda and Singapore and Britain and so on. They have quite different economies from ours. Quite different. Right? They have economies that are providing their people, with opportunity. In fact, they are taking in labor from other parts of the world and providing them with opportunity. A lot of people from Jamaica are migrating to the United States and finding opportunities there that they can't find in Jamaica. Right? There is a difference, not just of degree, but a difference in kind between what there is in the United States and what there is here. And the real question that we ought to be discussing is not how we're going to get this little pauperized economy that fails to provide people with the opportunity even to get decent education for themselves. How we're going to get it to move from what it is now to what it could be. We have seen what Singapore have done. We have seen what Bermuda has done. Right? Why do we have to sit here with a little 2,000 whatever a year per capita income when they can rise to the point of having economies that can generate per capita incomes in excess of $30,000 a year, US? That is the question. Look at Cayman, look at Bahamas. We take a break, we come back in a moment. Okay, thank you very much. We're back here online. We have in this country an economy that cannot, well, we call it an economy. And I suppose, in a manner of speaking, it is. But it's not a modern, it's not a 20th century economy. Right? It's an economy that is characterized by confusion, by a squandering of opportunity, by a waste of resources. We have people in this country who could be productive, but who are not having the opportunity to be productive. People who are sitting down on the roadside selling with few pack of cigarette upon a little table and selling them one to people passing by. And that is called employment. It's an economy designed not to produce wealth, but to produce poverty. And to produce insecurity, to produce crime. And that is what is happening to us. And then we have people from the intellectual ghetto telling us that it isn't true that things are falling apart. What a joke. There is on the front page of the Gleaner this morning a story about giving cops voter data, walker backs, enumeration, fingerprints in criminal investigation. You know, I don't know if Mr. Walker has thought about this, really. But this is a very serious and a very dangerous thing that is going on. And we have been hearing a discussion too about DNA data being made available to a database provided. I think it is a very dangerous thing for the police force to have a database of fingerprints of persons generally, not persons who have committed criminal offenses and have therefore been ordered to give fingerprints to the police. And even then, I mean, the practice that we have had in the courts, where somebody is arrested, taken before the courts, and a kind of automatic fingerprint order be made, where the court orders that they be taken, fingerprints be taken, I think is very dangerous. Because let us say that the police go to the scene of a crime and recover fingerprints there. They haven't told us or indicated to us what those fingerprints are, we don't know what the fingerprints that they have. They come and they take my fingerprints. And then they tell me that my fingerprint match the ones that they took at the scene. How can we be sure of that? How can we be sure that they don't just tear up their fingerprints that they found at the scene of the crime and say that my fingerprints are the ones that they found there? I should have thought that in protection of the rights of the citizen, that what would happen in circumstances like these is that the police would be obliged to supply to the accused man or his lawyer a copy of the fingerprints found at the scene of the crime before the accused man's fingerprints are taken by the police, so that we know in advance what they're going to be matching those fingerprints against. But this business of the police having access to a person's fingerprints before there is any determination of what it is that they're going to be matching it against, or before that becomes available to the defendant, is, I think, fundamentally wrong. And now what is being proposed? The fingerprints are taken in the process of voter enumeration. I should have expected that those fingerprints would have been very carefully guarded. And there are a lot of people in this country, I believe, who are reluctant to be enumerated because they don't want to give up their fingerprints to the authorities. And when we have Mr. Danville Walker coming out and agreeing with the idea of fingerprints being given to the police, voter fingerprints being made accessible to the police, it seems to me that this is a grossly irresponsible thing. Because people are now going to feel, why put myself in the position where the police can take some corrupt policeman? And we have been hearing about corruption in the police force for decades. I remember years ago, what is he now? Assistant Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner, whatever it is, Keith Gardner, talking about the corruption in the police officer corps on this program. And we have heard commissioners of police and other police officers talking about corruption in the force. And people's fingerprints are now to be made freely accessible to the police. So as to make it possibly easier for them to frame somebody. And Mr. Danville Walker is agreeing with it. Now, what is going to happen here? Are people going to want to be registered to vote? Of course, it's possible that if fewer people register to vote, and it might suit some people, might suit some people. But it seems to me that it does not support democracy in this country. People's rights must be protected, but we haven't really got in this country a sense of justice. We're not really too much concerned about justice for the ordinary man. Right? Look at what happened to Michael Gale. Look at what happened to Patrick Genius. Look at what happened to Organa Barrett. Look at what happened to Janice Allen. We're not really concerned about justice in this country. And that is part of the donkey cart syndrome. We do not have the kind of social and economic structure and values that other countries like the United States and Britain and the rest of them, we don't have that. We are like savages struggling in a remote environment. Right? We're not really concerned about justice to our people. We're not concerned about providing opportunity for our people. We're not even in the slave society, as has been pointed out by no less a person than Deacon Thwaites. There was full employment, right? The slave owners were able to make full use of their slaves. Here in Jamaica, in independent Jamaica, we have a free population, but we cannot fully employ that population. And we're talking about relative trivialities like balancing the budget. We take a break. We come back shortly. Okay, thank you very much. We're back here online, and we go now to our telephones. Hello?
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
How are you doing?
Oh, that sounds like a young boy.
Yes. Frank Phipps here.
Eh?
Frank Phipps here.
Ah, yes, little boy, how are you?
You go on, man. Enjoy yourself. Listen to me. Did I hear you the other day saying about how we have benefited? I don't know if the word you used from slavery.
Uh-huh.
Is that the word you used?
I think it might have been, yes.
Well, if it was, I must challenge you on that,
Yes, why?
Because we haven't benefited from slavery.
Eh?
We are here as a result of slavery. But you can't say we have benefited from slavery. We have benefited from the struggle of our forefathers.
We have benefited.
Who were against slavery. Those who fought against it.
Uh-huh.
That was to our advantage. Eh?
Uh-huh.
But you can't say there's a benefit from slavery. For example, take Sam Sharp, right?
Yes.
Who lost his life fighting against slavery.
Uh-huh.
Right? Did he benefit from slavery?
No, he didn't benefit from
slavery. And those of us who succeed, people like Sam Sharp, you can't say that we have benefited from the original thing.
Yes, I think we can say that.
No, but I don't see how you can justify that. Because our present situation follows after slavery.
It's not that it followed.
It doesn't mean it was caused by slavery.
No, it was a factor. Slavery was a factor that helped to determine our present not so much our present circumstances. But the fact of our existence, you and I and almost all the people of Jamaica
Yes.
exist. We owe our existence to slavery.
It's a wide term, you know. Our presence in Jamaica
Our presence anywhere.
resulted from a fact that our ancestors were transported from Africa.
No, sir, it's not just our presence in Jamaica.
Yeah.
That is one factor,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
But
there are other factors, I agree.
Our very existence, if we assume that our existence, well, we're thinking in terms of our biological existence,
Yes.
right?
Mm.
The genetic streams that produced you and produced me, and produced the rest of the population of Jamaica,
Yes.
would not have would not have been formed had our ancestors remained in Africa,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because they would not have crossed tribal boundaries
Yes.
in the way that happened under slavery. A, and B, most of us in Jamaica, whatever our complexion, are not just the results of African ancestors, right? The product of African ancestors. There is some European and some Indian and some Chinese and all of that mixed up in us, right?
But we straying from the point here.
No, I'm not straying from the point. What I'm saying is, no, sir.
Benefited. When
What I'm saying is
benefit means
that these people, our ancestors, some of whom belong to one tribe, some to another tribe, some to a third and a fourth and a fifth, right? Some of which were not even African, right? That congregation out of which we have come was brought about by slavery, right?
But how you use the word benefit in that context?
Well, if we value...
The word benefit suggests that there is some good.
Absolutely.
Make good, but you can't say that.
But if we regard...
out of evil you're getting good?
No, yes, indeed. That happens too.
You know? I mean, if a man...
That is one way of looking at it.
If a man murders another man and the children get some benefit from the estate of the deceased, they have benefited from his death, but they haven't benefited from the murder.
Well, the death was brought about by murder.
Yes.
And if he had died of something else, they wouldn't have got the benefit that it might have enabled them to have education and whatever.
Don't get me wrong. Yes.
I'm not advocating slavery any more than I'm advocating murder.
Yes.
But what I am saying is that the ill that befell our ancestors have resulted in a good for us.
Let me ask you,
however painful.
The slave owners benefited from slavery?
I suppose that they did.
Oh, you mean definitely they benefited.
Of course they did.
The vast wealth of Britain was from slavery.
No, sir. That's not true.
I mean, the sugar barons in those days?
No, that is not true.
What do you mean? They didn't benefit economically from the sugar?
Oh, yes, they benefited economically from the sugar. But I tell you something, towards the end of the... before slavery was abolished, there was I can't remember the details of it now, but the new capitalist class in Jamaica wanted to abolish, can't remember the details of it, but they wanted to abolish the protection, the concessions that were offered to the cane farmers, the estate owners here in Jamaica, and to allow the importation of sugar from on a free market basis, right? Because slavery, the production of sugar under slavery was more efficient, more inefficient, right, than the production of. I would have to look it up to get the details of it, but I'm sure that there was such a.
But we must deal with slavery in its proper context insofar as it affects us. For example, I heard you quoting somebody else as saying full employment during slavery.
Yes.
I mean, when you think of employment, it suggests an employee. Hold on.
But
it
I'm
suggests
not.
an employer and an employee who have mutually entered into a contract.
Yes.
Which is not what slavery was.
No, but what I'm saying is...
When you speak of employment, that's what I understand, you know.
No, sir, but...
It's full labor force, you know.
No, but what is involved here? The slave owners had an asset. Their slaves represented an asset.
They owned, yes. They owned the asset.
They owned, yes, all right.
Yes.
But it was an asset. And they were able to make full use of that asset.
Yes.
What I'm saying today in independent Jamaica, right? Our population, our human beings in Jamaica represent our most valuable, potentially our most valuable asset as a people, right? As a nation. But we are not making full use of that asset. We are sitting down and allowing people and their potential to rot.
You see,
right? And turning them into
when you
criminals.
talk about benefit and you talk about employment and you talk about assets, that the people are an asset. And who's the owner there?
Well, we own ourselves.
You know what I mean?
What I'm saying is that it isn't bauxite that represents the best potential for the economy of this country. It isn't tourism, right? It is people. It is what that little boy, that little 5-year-old boy, right, running along in some little ghetto area this morning. If that boy is properly is offered the appropriate opportunities, God alone knows what he might become and what he might achieve.
That's an entirely different point, that the people don't see the opportunity to develop their full potential.
Yes.
That is a point that nobody can argue about. I agree with you there. Must agree with you there. But when we use words like benefit and full employment during slavery, and that the people of Jamaica are an asset.
No, but what I'm saying, we owe our existence. Had it not been for the population movements involved in the slave trade and the plantation establishment here, we as human beings would probably not have existed. And if therefore, if we regard our existence as a good, right, then we have benefited from slavery.
Our existence has been caused to a certain extent by slavery. And if we regard our existence as good, therefore we have benefited from slavery. That is not good logic.
Not to a certain extent. Without slavery, without that movement of population that was involved in the slave trade, we would not have existed. Now, I'm not telling you, therefore, that slavery was a good thing, right? What I'm and that maybe we should start moving some more slaves.
There's a saying about out of evil cometh good.
Yes, indeed.
Is that what your argument is based
upon? But if we look at it in a more sophisticated way, right? What we regard today as evil, 500 years ago was not regarded as evil, right? What we today regard as good, in 500 years there might be peoples, populations, nations regarding that as evil.
Well, I don't want to spoil your listeners' Christmas, but when things do change, you know, I mean...
Hold on just a moment for me, please. Okay. Thank you very much. We're back here, sir.
I want to make 3 small points.
Yes.
The slave did not benefit from slavery. You agree?
Yes, I would argue that.
Okay. So those who came from the slave, descended from the slave, wouldn't have benefited from slavery. And the slave owners were the one who benefited. And let's look at the situation. People who came to Jamaica without having been slaves and not descendants of slaves. Right? What's their position? They're enjoying the same thing here now that we enjoy.
Yes, indeed.
But they're not benefiting. What about...
No, sir.
Hold on. If the European countries had not gone and raped Africa, what would Africa be there today? We don't know. What would Africa be like today? We don't know. Might be better than all of Europe today.
No, I think it's very unlikely, sir.
Well, you can't say that because they have a tremendous history that they had before.
Yes, sir, but hold on.
They might have developed it.
One of the things that we can't moralize too much about history, right?
No.
Because things happen in history that in the past, which we would regard as immoral. But consequences have flowed from them, or potential has flowed from them, which are beneficial. When you talk about the Europeans going and raping Africa, for example,
definitely, yes.
Yes. Now,
talk about that with
have you considered why is it that it was Europe that invaded Africa and not Africa that invaded Europe?
Because one tribe is more warlike than the other.
No.
Greedy, warlike.
No.
Yes.
No, that's not the reason.
Yes.
No.
Of course that's the reason.
No.
Greedy and warlike.
No.
They went and raped a continent that had very passive people.
No, sir.
Well, that's my view.
No, sir. In human history.
And take out all their natural resources, Take out their people, take out their resources, and still exploiting them.
No, but when you come talking about taking out the people, right?
Yes.
It was the Africans that made the people available, you know.
Well, yes, but you wouldn't say that the Africans.
No.
Just like there was
the Africans.
Hold on, bad people in every nation.
It was Africans that traded slaves with the Europeans.
Yes, but you're not saying that this was the Africans were bad people because all Africans were
and I remember
people.
There was a
white people enslaved white people, do you know?
Hold on, there was an American journalist, can't remember his name at the moment, who did a series on Africa, a television series on Africa that was broadcast on PBS.
Yes.
And in one of those episodes, he dealt with this problem of slavery.
Yes.
And he had an interview with some person in some tribal chieftain or something.
Yes.
And the man they were looking at, they were talking about the raids that were made to capture these people. They were held in prisons.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Until the ships arrived.
Right.
And they weren't just raids. I mean, what was happening was that these were tribes that had, and there was some enmity between them, right? And the man was saying to him, made the comment to him at one point, that had it not been for slavery, we would have killed you.
Really?
Yes. Right?
But when you speak about black people,
it was slavery that made them valuable.
Africans were enslaving black people, you know. I mean, you had some bad Africans who were enslaving black people, but that doesn't mean that the continent of Africa was populated by persons who were enslaving their brothers and sisters.
But hold on, sir. Another thing that we need to understand is that in human history, the peoples that have made the greatest progress, the most rapid progress, have been those that are in contact with other peoples. Right? So that technology spreads among them. Right? I invent something, you are next door, you see it, you take advantage of it. You invent something, I do the same.
Cross-fertilization.
Cross-fertilization, right? Now, the people in southern Africa were economically backward and technologically backward because they were isolated. Right? Now, when the Europeans, who had the ships and the means of getting across the ocean and whatnot, and the guns and things, when they bridged that gap between southern Africa and the world that was moving so fast ahead, right? They exposed these African peoples to technologies from which they had been isolated.
But have you forgotten that
the trouble is that the Africans haven't taken the advantage of it that they might have taken.
The civilization that existed in Persia when people in England were living in caves.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
That what?
The Persian civilization.
Yes.
I'm not too versed on this. When people in England are probably living in caves still.
Yes, but the point that I'm making.
Fight them off and kill them and feed.
Yes, but the point that I'm making is that the Europeans, all the things that we associate with European culture, were not all invented by Europeans.
But the Europeans got
they copied from the Arabs, they copied from China. Right?
Use it to their advantage of killing other people.
Well, fine. Well, I'm not moralizing about it at this point.
It looks like you're defending these people for their...
No, I'm not doing any such thing.
As if we have benefited from slavery, and thank God that we bought here as slaves, and then the colonial master, you're an old colonial, huh?
What?
You're an old colonist. You believe in colonialism.
I have said, and I am prepared again to say that colonialism was not all bad.
Who says it is all bad? It was more bad than good. It was more bad than good.
No, but I tell you something. You and I, hold on. Listen to what is going on.
You are an old conservative like George W.
No, sir. Think about what is going on here at the moment. Right? You and
like George W. going down to the Middle East and telling them how they must run their country.
Yes, you and I are speaking.
Yes.
And other people listening to this program are hearing and understanding the English language.
Yes.
Right? How did we come to be speaking English?
Okay.
And are there benefits associated with the speaking of English?
Yes. Therefore?
Colossal benefits.
Yes.
And that has been one of the consequences.
If we're speaking French, would we be in a worse position?
I suspect that English has greater advantages.
You think so?
Well, I remember...
No, I'm not competent to deal with that. I don't know.
Well, but let me just make a point. I remember going to being in Holland and noticing that I didn't encounter a single person who did not speak English as well as I spoke it.
And you go to parts of Jamaica, you have the same thing?
Well, I haven't spent very much time in Paris.
In Jamaica, you go to some parts of Jamaica,
and you go to a bookshop. You go to a bookshop in Amsterdam, right?
Yeah.
And more than half the books in there are in English.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. I'm not trying to say that we are not.
And you know why? Because a book printed in Dutch is going to be more expensive than one printed in English.
Yes. That's all right. No problem.
So what I'm saying is that colonialism had its bad side, and it had its good side. It had its benefits, offered benefits to the colonials.
But to make a wide statement to say we have benefited from colonialism seems to suggest
we have benefited from it.
Seems to suggest that there's more good than evil.
But Mr. Phipps, you're a lawyer. You are a lawyer.
But it's not a legal point.
No. We have inherited a system. We are in the process of debasing it, I believe.
Yes.
But we have inherited a system of laws from Britain.
Yeah.
Right? In the way that Britain inherited them, some elements of them from Rome and elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Right. But we have inherited that system of laws, which is among the benefits. Right?
Yeah.
We have inherited
But it's still being
a political system. We're not making the best of it, I don't think.
Yeah.
But again, that is part of one of the benefits of. So we mustn't.
That's the result of slavery. We can't use it to advantage.
We mustn't too readily moralize about history.
It prevents us from taking advantage of the legal system.
No.
Yes.
We mustn't moralize too freely about history.
Yeah.
Right? What happened in 1550 may seem appalling to us today. Right? It didn't seem so then. There is no point in moralizing about it because we cannot change it. That is going to be a fact of history, whatever we feel about it. What we need to see, to look at, is what are the consequences that it has had. What has come out of it. And what of that is good and what of it is bad.
Agree.
And let us also remember about slavery when we think of it from the perspective of today's Jamaica, right? That some of the things that happen today in Jamaica were unlikely, would have been unlikely to happen in the slavery period, right?
You mean the murders that are taking place?
Hold on just a moment for me. Very much. We're back with you, Mr.
But I'm going around for us and have to keep both hands on the steering wheel.
Yes, but could I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you think that a 17th century slave owner would have been prepared to see his slaves treated as people in Tivoli were treated by our 20th century, 21st century police?
No, because he was protecting his
20th century?
He's protecting his property.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Do you think he would have been prepared to see what happened to Janice Allen, happened to one of his slaves?
Yes. But
right?
But Mutty, your argument sounds like the father who is beating his son and says to him, son, this is hurting me more than it's hurting you.
How?
You know what I mean? So the slave owner is saying, I'm keeping you slave for your benefit.
Uh-huh.
You know, that can't be right.
No. The slave owner had an interest in his slaves.
Ultimately, you'll benefit
that our political leaders do not have in us.
Well, that's a different argument.
Yes. Our supposedly democratic political leaders are not as much concerned about our safety as the 17th century slave owner was about the safety of his slaves.
You mean they're not doing anything about it?
They're not concerned. If they were concerned, they have the power, and if they were concerned, they could do something about it. Right? But when a policeman can
One day I'd like to argue with you and say that, the question of a person's and individual's safety, security, lies with that person and his community. The police are there to assist them.
Yes.
Instead, so that we must assist the police. We must help be sure of our own security, and the police are there to assist us. The emphasis has always been work with the police. You know what I mean? I think the police is an agent of the state, and we must be able to protect them.
The police are an agent of the state.
Yes, but they are there to assist us. We are concerned about our own safety and security.
Absolutely. But that is not what is happening.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
That is not what is happening.
Yes.
Right? So we have to be very careful how we talk about slavery and the conditions of slavery.
I agree.
The slaves...
But I'm talking absolute terms.
The slaves, I'm sure, were better off than many of the people in contemporary Jamaica.
No.
Oh, come now.
No.
Better off in the materials.
There's nothing more precious than your freedom.
Fine, they didn't have that. But they didn't have to wonder where food was coming from.
Yes.
They didn't have to wonder where shelter was coming from.
It was better to starve in freedom than to...
And what I'm talking here is not a measure of how good slavery was, but of how bad the contemporary conditions of Jamaicans are.
Amen. Okay. All right, I got to go.
But before you go, may I ask you another question?
I want to wish you a Merry Christmas.
Yes, indeed. You'll have that opportunity.
Okay.
But look here. I see that it is being suggested that the police should have access to fingerprints taken for purposes of registration of voters.
Yes.
What is your view on that?
I just saw the headline. I haven't thought it through.
Eh?
I haven't thought it through. I'll discuss it with you. I haven't thought it through. I'm sorry, but I have not thought it through.
Okay.
All right.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. All the best to you. Okay. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Perkins.
Uh-huh.
I'm calling you from Clarendon, Norton.
Yes.
Town, to be more exact.
Town?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I have some concern because I hear our Prime Minister saying they're cleaning up the place for World Cup and what have you. And the cleaning up that we as citizens used to get for Christmas.
You think that hold on. You think that you have any damn importance that all this money should be spent cleaning up place for you? Cleaning it for tourists and visitors to World Cup, man.
But this is what I cannot understand.
You're not important.
This is what I cannot understand because traditionally,
yes,
you used to see the place being cleaned. You know, we have good weather this year.
Uh-huh.
So there's a lot of grass in the countryside, Mr. Perkins.
Uh-huh.
And even some of the roads, most of them are parish council roads. And the grass almost meet in the middle of the road.
Yes. Well, the mayors need to get some more tear gas.
Oh, yes, because I'm just coming from a place named McCoy.
Yes.
And the citizens are there now working on the road to make it drivable.
Yes.
That their relatives can come in.
So hold on a little bit. They don't pay their taxes.
Sure, they pay their taxes.
Oh, they pay their taxes, but they work on the road.
Yes.
I see.
McCoy is a place from Mr. Horace that have been member of parliament.
Uh-huh.
He haven't spent $8 on that road.
Well, I tell you something, sir. I say it all the time. Don't hold it against Mr. Daly. Mr. Daly does not command the resources as an MP, right? It is the government, of which he's a member. It is the government that commands those resources, right? And that decides what is to be done with money.
I'll agree with that, Mr. Perkins. But one thing you wouldn't know is that just last week, Mr. Daly could find money from the SESP. I'm not sure if that is the name.
SESP.
Yes, to give the political faithful chickens. A lot of one-day-old chicken was given just last week.
Uh-huh.
And I am saying, if some of those monies was used to clean the road, then the whole community would benefit.
Well, maybe so.
Instead of a handful.
Maybe so.
So I would like you to call the mayor of Maypen to find out if any money was not given for the Union Town Division for Christmas project.
I see.
Because the length and breadth of the division have not seen any cleaning up, any beautification. Right?
Yes.
The same Mr. Daly can find money as Minister of Health to buy machines to put in the hospitals only because of World Cup. Right? And you see on television more time where common citizens have to be begging for help financially because they have to do this or that operation and they cannot afford it.
Yeah.
But now government can find all this $1 million to put on a show, a charade for World Cup.
Yes.
And I have news for them.
Well, you know, what this has to do with, sir, is the government's perception of what is and what is not important, or what is more important than what, right?
Yes.
as far as the government is concerned, making preparations for World Cup is of greater importance than making preparations for you for people of Jamaica to enjoy a decent life.
Yeah, but Mr. Perkins,
right?
would you agree that if they had made the preparation for us, then the people coming in for World Cup would benefit?
That is quite true, sir. That is absolutely true.
So they wouldn't have to go out of their way to put on this great show.
Yes.
Right? Because
that is absolutely true.
It's a great
But
show.
then they do not consider us important.
Yes. And what I want Mr. Daly to know is that nobody's going to come here under this malaria threat. I heard somebody from a neighboring community named Morgan's Forest call you a couple of days ago. And I can sanction what that person is saying. Every minister use their portfolio responsibility in order to better themselves. And Mr. Perkins, that this way is like, it's flat. And we have a lot of water when the Cave River overflow. I like how we have in plenty rains.
Yes.
And mosquitoes are killing us left, right, and center. And I don't see anybody from the Ministry of Health coming in even to oil some of the ponds or stuff like that we can get rid of the mosquitoes. So don't be surprised that the next case of malaria here will be coming out of Clarendon North. And we have the Minister of Health. And nothing is being done to get rid of the mosquito.
Well, that is the problem that we have. That the sanitation work is not being adequately funded and adequately performed, right? We don't think that the people of Jamaica are important. Garbage can be thrown all over the place. If there if the drainage is not properly, arranged, and therefore that is what facilitates the breeding of the Anopheles mosquito.
Yes, sir, and I'm not sure if we don't have it here, absolutely no attention from the member. Here for 17, going to 18 years now, Mr. Perkins.
Well.
Right? I
hope he has been having a good time.
I would like you to ask the mayor of Mayton how much was allotted for the Indian Town division.
But you put him there, you know.
Beg your pardon?
I said you put him there.
No, Mr. Daly know me well, so him know say I don't vote for him. Because I have nothing more than that. I vote with people based on their performance.
I follow you.
Yes.
All right, sir. We hope something will be done about it soon. All right?
Okay.
All the best to you. A point that I forgot to make in that conversation with Mr. Phipps earlier on was the context in which I spoke about slavery as our having reaped benefits from slavery. It had to do with the claim for reparations for slavery and the argument that I suppose the British should write us a check for some billions of pounds, which is another way of begging for some money, and finding a pretext on which to beg. The fact of the matter is that we too have had benefits from slavery in our very existence, in this country that we have inherited and has now become our own, bad as we are treating it. And therefore, it seems to me that if reparations are to be paid for slavery, then we must get out our checkbooks too. And to whom are these reparations to be paid? The persons who suffered under slavery are no longer here, right? To receive any benefits, any reparations. And also, the Africans who sold our ancestors into slavery. What about them? Shouldn't they be paying reparations too, if reparations are to be paid? damn nonsense. Hello? Hello?
Yes, darling.
Yes, good morning.
Oh, good morning, sir. Is that you, Mutty?
Yes, it is.
Oh, please, I see you put your foot in your mouth sometimes.
Oh.
And you're misunderstood just like I am.
Huh?
This is Jean Anderson calling from Mandeville.
Oh, yes.
Allow me the time just to clarify something, please. I made, in the newspaper today and on Power yesterday, there was a feel out as to what people would feel about us finding if it is legal or can be made legal to use the existing database, which is already in the electoral system for fingerprints, as it is because it's paid for, and the fact that the police do not have one. Now, this came about, I'll give you a brief thumb sketch, basically out of my concern upon hearing from the police superintendent here when on some civic organizations I sit on. He was asked the question, and he said they have no database. It would make things much easier, but they have no database for that they can refer to other than if you are in the criminal, already a convicted criminal or one that has gone through the system.
Yes.
This sent up red flags in my head, and I decided, or in the interest of the country in which I live, to just ask a question, throw it out to the media. As a concerned citizen, a justice of the peace, and a civic worker in many organizations. So I threw it out by way of an email, which was sent to you, to ask media to see if it could be a possibility, and if we could find out if it could be used, but it is not the desirable thing. A national identity database is what is desirable, and it is important we get on this as fast as we can. We are finding money for cricket and everything else, but we do not have a national database, which could be used for so many things.
Yes.
You agree with me? So it is a way of a feel out to see if it could be a legal thing that could be made legal as an interim measure. I repeat, an interim measure to assist those who have to prove innocence or guilt and have to have the tools available to them, which will take years to compile otherwise. I don't know the human rights position. I don't know any other thing other than I myself
and
would have no objection.
You're not concerned about that?
No, of course I am. I said I would have no objection, Marty. Now, come on. You get off your human rights bandwagon.
I'm not on the bandwagon.
Put yourself in the position of people, of us, all of us who should be trying to find the best way we can to give those who are enforcing the law the tools needed to contain this horrible wave of crime and murder. Do you agree we have a horrible wave of crime?
I agree we have a horrible wave of crime and murder.
What is your solutions? I won't go into it because you have your opinion. I have mine, but I was not asking as me, Jean Anderson. I was asking to feel out if it could be an interim possibility.
But have you considered...
This reached the media. Hold on
a little bit. Have you considered the possibility that it might lead to even greater injustice than we already have in this country?
Mutty, I made no judgment call.
But
I simply asked if as an interim tool it could be so possible to make this a paid for information, which has cost me other taxpayer money, a way to find it to make it available to those who are trying to convict or to bring... everybody is innocent till proven guilty, but if you don't give me the tools, it sometimes is very hard to convict. I know some going to walk guilty for free. And it's just my concern that I've come to this stage where I'm asking a question. Is that reasonable?
So you are anxious to make it easier to convict?
I make it anxious for justice to be done. So don't
but I asked you about that a moment ago. You said you're not concerned with that?
Hey, is your position, sir?
What?
When you consider that the people who are out there, who are the only line of defense we have against crime and violence and murder, they're out there doing a job with
Mom,
their hand, maybe tied behind their back.
Mom, there is something very sad in the thought that our only line of defense against murder and violence is the police.
Come on, give me another one.
Right?
I don't know. You come with the ideas.
Eh?
Come with the ideas.
Yes, but why do we... I would like to
tendency.
deal with what you have suggested.
Well, a lot of us have this tendency only to be negative and bleeding hearts.
It's not a matter of dealing with negatives.
But we don't realize the danger that we are leaving out
you
here with the police
you clearly do not recognize or are unconcerned about the danger to which you are exposing people by this proposal.
Oh, Mutty, you should be ashamed.
What?
I have not exposed anybody. I fairly threw
You have put forward a suggestion.
Correct. And it can be yes or no or not possible.
Yes, and I'm saying,
done.
I am saying why, in my view, it should be no.
Well, say that, please, sir.
What?
Say that is in your opinion, as I'm saying
but I am putting forward the basis upon which I'm saying it.
But of course, and you're entitled to do so.
Yes.
Like I'm entitled to put forward the basis that I say.
Yes, so what have you come here for now?
It's like me having a motor car and I can't get the tires to put on it or the money to put gas in and somebody offering me. I mean, it's not a good analogy.
But I'm asking you, do you understand the danger to which persons
I'm not an idiot. The one thing you do not accuse me of is being a fool. Of course I understand their pros and cons. You should know that.
You understand. And you're unconcerned about
everything. More than concerned.
Because you don't expect that it will happen to you or yours.
Mutty, you are taking your human rights at night and on the white charger going into battle. That's your way. I have one way. I only look.
You don't think human rights is important?
Very important. But I'm looking ways now to try and give the tools to the people who are the front line.
But those ways must be consistent with the rights of people.
Mutty, you're very unfair, man.
Am I unfair?
How many times? Of course you are.
In what way am I being unfair?
Well, if you'll give me a chance, since I'm speaking to you and I don't have the program for 2.5 hours, just give me a little break, huh? I repeat once more. I make no decision. I throw it out to see if this tool could be a stopgap. If I'm unreasonable and it cannot be done, just yes or no. The Roger came out and said no. Few people have I have my own group who I am a member of the Chamber of Commerce with a long history of service. And I hold an officer position at the moment. I'm not sure for how long.
Yes.
And they're all jumping on me and saying, the way it's put in the newspapers and over the media is that I'm demanding this be done. Nothing could be further from the truth.
But that has nothing
I am demanding only one thing.
That has nothing to do with it.
Mutty, hold on just a moment. Our human rights leading us.
Hold on a moment, please. Okay, thank you very much. We're back with you.
To say something, please, my love. I know you're rushed and so am I, but I want to just
I'm not annoyed.
No, I'm not annoyed. I'm just saying to you, don't make me out to be not caring about human rights. I just don't see how human rights come into the fact that all of us are going to be, like the United States, everybody has a national identity card. It's going to come one way or the other, once we can afford it. And therefore, it is something that is essential to first world management of crime, to have the data available. I don't think it would be infringing, but I stand to be corrected on human rights, underline those words, on human rights, that my fingerprint, no more than my national identity card that I have now, my electoral card, is available to everybody. They can have it. That is for identity. I have to use it for identification. So I don't see how, I don't understand the argument of how this infringes on human rights. Those who don't want to know, listen to the argument that some of the people are, it is fair, and I understand that it will give a black eye and a negative look to the fact that I'm asking you for your fingerprint.
You don't understand, you say, how this might infringe upon human rights.
Yes.
Would you like me to explain
does it infringe that I already have it in the electoral office and anybody can ask me for my card?
Would you like me to
Yes, I stand to be educated, please, because I have no intention on stepping on human rights.
Did you hear Mr. Patterson?
Well, where are we going to Mr. Patterson?
What?
What about Mr. Patterson?
He was the Prime Minister of Jamaica.
No, really?
Yes.
Oh, goodness, I must have been...
And he talked about a corrupt police force. Not being trusted to investigate corruption.
I don't feel shame when you come with those arguments.
The Commissioner of Police has spoken about corruption in the police force.
Don't come with those silly arguments.
What silly argument?
There is corruption in everything. And there will be unless...
Well, let me ask you this then.
But listen, Mutty, there are
all right. Thank you very much.
Police down.
So long. Okay. Hello? Hello.
Good morning, Mr. P.
Morning to you, sir.
How are you doing?
Not too bad.
I'll not start wishing you any happy and Merry Christmas at the moment. But I want to remember Miss Williams, who is always ready at a moment's notice. I was glad to hear Sir Frank Phipps this morning.
Yes.
Although some of the points he made I didn't concur. I'll have to sit and reason. But this country... I'm looking at some of the ministries who have been abject failures.
Yes.
And when I talk about that, I mean the Minister of National Security. I listened to the crime stats, and I heard Dr. Colin Grooms said that police shooting has gone up. They've killed at least 22 persons.
220... Yes.
And I hear a spinner on the Breakfast Club, and I can call the spinner name. Her name is Mrs. Donna Scott Borising Motley. She says, is it that they shot at the police first? Or something like that. You understand? Now look, we have throughout the year gotten reports that a man sit and pointed his gun at the police. He pointed his gun at the police. It's apparent that we have more mad people in this country, and we got to get some more psychiatrists. How can a man take a little 38 or 45 and point at 12 officers out there, 6 officers, with M16, and he pointed it? That is madness, is lunacy, and we got to examine these people head.
Yes, there were 12 policemen there.
Yes. And
with big guns.
Big guns. And
this man had a little, what is it, a 38?
A little one pop, as they call it in the underworld. A little one pop. And he pointed it at the police. And you want me to believe that?
Well, people sometimes have a desire to commit suicide, you know, sir.
It's a... Now, that ministry... We have watched that ministry over the years. They have not supplied the tool to do that job, and it did not come on us overnight.
Yes.
It did not come on us overnight that this wave of crime and so on and so forth. And we are getting forensic machine now, and we don't have any cars and all sorts of things. That ministry is in shambles.
Yes.
It is in shambles. We move to another ministry which is vital and very important to the health of Jamaica, the Ministry of Health. The Ministry of Health did not deteriorate overnight. It has been coming for a number of years. It has been sorely neglected. And I'm saying it to you as a former chairman of a couple of hospital boards. I was chairman of a hospital board, and you watch it deteriorate, disintegrate, until now we become the butt of a joke. Every minute we have something break out.
Yes.
And we hear Mr. Dilly-Dally running around and saying, this will be fixed, that will be fixed, that will be fixed, and so on. And this hospital down in Monterey will be painted up and all the glass windows changed. What that got to do with it?
Uh-huh.
Every night you see on the television or in the week, a little child suffering from this, suffering from that kidney machine, that department or that ministry is in shambles. Let us come to the other ministry now, the Minister of Justice, where my learned friend, the Honorable A.J. Nicholson, is in charge of. They've got a team from out of Canada. They have a team out of Canada now who is having a look at that department. And if you listen carefully, a couple of days ago, you hear that there was about 270-odd cases in the Michaelmas session. And they have to traverse 200 and odd to the Hillary session, which will start the 8th of January. This has been steady building up. This has been steadily building up in that ministry. I heard somebody say it's over 600, and hear me carefully, not coroners, is over 600 coroners case on file, cannot be dealt with.
Yes.
And the question of sending to get jurors to deal with it, that is in a state of backlog. Recently, somebody remarked that people were going to the coroner's court like they're going to job. They sit on every case. And that has not been rectified. It has not been rectified. What is happening in the judiciary? And is very important. And Mr. Anki Panky must learn that. He's used as he get up like today, Friday, he's at the Senate. And if you put his two hands by some miracle, you could get his two hands at his side. He would be speechless. He couldn't say a word if his two hands was been at his side. He has got to be gesticulating, pointing, ducking, bending, and weaving. What for? Is the ministry that he serves is under pressure, severe pressure, and no money. That's another ministry that's an abject failure. And the other ministry that Mr. Dean Peart, the Ministry of Local Government, the best part of that ministry has been the councillors all over the country. National Solid Waste come under him. And last night there was a long thing about uncollected garbage in different UN, every part of the corporate area.
There's a problem in Montego Bay too.
Oh, that is a gigantic problem, that is. And it comes under that minister. And yet still he says we have got to get it right. We've got to get the audit right. We've got to get the audit of the parish councils right.
Well, there is Trafigura.
And
the JLP dominates the parish councils.
Yes. And he's got to get that right.
And there's a need for a scandal to be,
What ministry is functioning? Probably labor, probably tourism. What ministry is functioning right? You tell me which one is functioning right. Because those that I mentioned, they're all wrong because of paucity of funds.
Yes.
They don't have any funds. And the brains is not there either. We are in trouble. And so...
Not only do they have no funds, sir.
Right.
They had no funds last year, too.
Yes.
And the year before that.
And the year before.
Right. And there is no plan to, so far as I can see, to create a situation in which sufficiency of funds can be generated. Right?
That's right.
The economy, I was saying this morning, we have a donkey cart economy, right? And we talk about, how many boards in the cart need replacing, and, the donkey have a sore foot and we need to fix it and so on to get the thing really moving and productive. We're not sitting down and considering how we can get rid of that donkey cart and get ourselves a truck.
That's right. That's right, sir. That's right. The ministry...
And all these people who claim that these supposed experts who read more books and have more books in their library and only the the head of the Federal Reserve Board,
Yes.
have comparable knowledge about matters economic.
Look,
right.
every now and then somebody blurt out something and it's cottoned onto.
Yes.
Look at this man. You were talking to a lady a while ago. And we have a headline here, Give Cops Voter Data. Now, and sooner if you read the story, it will tell you that Mr. Danville Walker, the big Don, meaning Danville Walker, he's saying if the laws were enacted, he would gladly supply the information. That is to use people's fingerprint.
Yes.
At the outset, it was not the original idea. The idea of using people's fingerprint to pass over to the police was never mooted.
Hold on just a moment for me.
You're listening to Perkins Online, the Thinking Person's Talk Show. Our phone numbers are 968-4901, 968-4902, 968-4903. Our local toll-free line is 1-888-991-4072. Or you may call our international toll-free line, courtesy of the People's Telecom of Jamaica Limited, winners of the prestigious Jamaica Milestone Award on 1-866-LINK-106. That's 1-866-5465-106. You can also log on and listen to Perkins Online live on the World Wide Web free at www.go-jamaica.com. Now back to Perkins Online on Power 106 FM.
Okay, thank you very much. We're back here on
Mr. B, I am saying that a suggestion is made to hand over database to the police force.
Yeah.
Beyond any stretch of your wildest imagination, I am giving this series 24 years as a member of the judiciary free of cost, and I don't agree with handing over my fingerprints to them. I could argue and say, I am all right, Jack, I have never done anything wrong. But what you're handing my fingerprints over, it's an infringement upon my inalienable...
But not only that, sir. You're handing it over
Yes, sir.
to a police force that has often been described as corrupt by a former prime minister,
of course,
by a former commissioner of police,
of course,
by the present commissioner of police, and others.
And
right?
we don't
now,
have people.
What if that if you give my fingerprints to the police, and the police go to some crime scene and then come back and tell me that that is a fingerprint that they find there? I am of the view that, and this applies also to this business of DNA.
That's right.
It seems to me that when the police are going to take fingerprints or DNA evidence from somebody, right?
Yes.
DNA,
yes,
samples from somebody, that they should first produce the DNA that they found at the crime scene.
That's right.
And say have the analysis done. And that should be handed over to the accused person's lawyer.
The O.J. Simpson
And then you
case,
take the thing and you find out whether it matches that one.
The O.J. Simpson case is fresh in my mind.
Absolutely, sir. Yes. Absolutely.
If you go to a man in the street and say, what is DNA? They couldn't even spell it. All they hear DNA.
Yes.
And serving members of the force don't know what is DNA. They can't spell the blinking words. They can't spell the word. Look, let me spring over to this other one now. Every now and then somebody moves something and it is cottoned onto, and they jump and run with it. This one
But
now.
before we leave that, sir.
Yes, sir.
It is important to understand that the effect that this could have upon people registering to vote.
Of course.
Okay?
Of course.
And it is very dangerous.
Very dangerous. Very dangerous. I cannot sit and idle by and say, they're not going to trouble me because I have been a member of the judiciary for 20 odd years.
I'm glad to see that your friend, the Attorney General,
yes,
has said that he's
in the middle of it.
Yes, he hasn't.
He don't know.
He hasn't endorsed it.
No, he hasn't endorsed it. You understand? And perhaps it's a wrong time for me to be suggesting that if somebody could pin his hands at his side, because he works with that, he works with his pins.
Yes.
If you don't have his pins, him can't work. Now, somebody suggested about the Caribbean Court of Justice, and say more people polled in Jamaica that they want the Caribbean Court of Justice. Now,
I'm sure that the government was very glad to hear that.
They're glad, and they even suggesting that we should run with it. Somebody suggested that. No, the Caribbean Court of Justice is either a referenda, or 2/3 majority in both houses. Before you can go. We went like it, a bullet a gate. Over 20 million Jamaicans' money was borrowed on behalf of us to put into that Caribbean Court of Justice.
Yes.
They appoint 7 judges, and not one come from Jamaica.
Yes.
Not one come from Jamaica. And we are here beating our heads against a brick wall. Throw it away! That's where the Privy Council is colonialism of the past. It's a relic of colonialism. You understand? No, vote says, well, more people is supporting it. What are they supporting? Let us tell the people what they're supporting.
You cannot rely, if you want to know what the people support, sir.
Yes, sir.
Have the referendum.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Don't go by the poll.
By the poll.
A poll is not a very reliable guide to such a conclusion.
That's right.
Okay.
And I rest my case for the better part of this year.
Okay.
I rest my case, and all the best.
Thank you very much, and the very same.
Email too.
The very same to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Well, I tell you, your program has been hot this morning.
Is that so?
Yes, but I was disappointed with Sir Frank. Yeah, he was reasoning on an emotional base. I thought you would have come with the fingerprint issue. But he was talking.
Well, he said he hasn't been yet.
But I'm going fast forward to that lady, that Siaga sister lady there. She's accusing him of being silly, and she's the one who is being silly because she has not carefully thought out the issues.
Yes.
She's likening our situation to the American institution. Nowhere in American national ID involves you being fingerprinted. I don't know where she get that from.
Is that so?
No, there's no the kind of ID that she's talking, there's no fingerprinting. And even if there is, it is protected and separated from the criminal database. Because the criminal database, right, is arrived at by police doing their work.
Yes.
They go to
But even then, so you remember the O.J. Simpson case?
Yes, I'm coming to that, because that is where that now comes in, where incompetence and corruption is involved in our force. So you cannot give the police this kind of power, because there's corruption, there's incompetence. But back to the fingerprinting, let me give you a personal experience. There was a young man who lived up the road where I used to live years ago. He was very bad, give trouble and all of that. Called school, everything. His mother filed for him. He went to the States. It was worse. He became a full-blown criminal. He even broke into this person's house. And the man startled him. He took a lamp thing and bashed the man's skull in. Right? And escaped with what he wanted. And went on further crime sprees. But what do you think the police were doing? They were collecting fingerprints. And you see, when they caught him on a simple, on a drug charge, ganja, whatever, and they took his print, and you see, when they run it in the database, he's serving 300 years right now. And yes, because his prints were everywhere.
Yes.
And this is how it goes. It's supposed to be mostly blind. Either you commit yourself up front and they fingerprint you, even for a minor charge that involves printing, or they collect the prints at a robbery, a car theft. This is how it works. Because criminals most times are very serial people. They continue in this type of crime and even might upgrade themselves to a higher level crime.
You know, so one of our problems in this country, you see,
the police don't do their work.
that the way to overcome the inadequacies of the police is to give them more power.
More unbridled power. Because this, and I didn't want to say this, Mutty, but Mrs. what I name from down Manchester, she's now more taken by the fear and the crime that is going on and more personal with the people who she knows are now presumed possibly dead or murdered.
That is another of
they're reacting and
that's another of our problems in Jamaica.
Precisely, the knee-jerk reaction and the reactionary, and then we just forget all right and do stupid things.
Yes.
Look, for example, there was I know a police, right? He's not very straight, right? And he liked this guy, and the guy was not into what he's into, and he was trying to blackmail the guy to say I'm going to pin a charge on him. No, this is corruption. You understand? It's for his own personal gains,
Yes.
Suppose he had access to fingerprint. Him no could have fabricated something against the guy.
Of course.
This is what I'm saying. You need proper controls and giving wholesale or that's why for years I was afraid to be enumerated, and I'm honest about this. Is the whole fingerprinting thing. But the point is you cannot give them wholesale this. No, let them go out in the field, collect the evidence, because our criminals are not very sophisticated, Mutty. They leave prints everywhere. I remember a case when a lady called about in Dwayne Park about she losing $200,000 and it must have been the helper. And when she tell them what about fingerprint? For print, because the prints are there and you could cross match and know, because she alone had keys. I remember she telling you.
Yes.
She alone had keys for inside. And if the girl is a suspect, you could, if you had equipment to collect the print, you could match it against hers.
Yes.
Because she said clearly to you, the girl could not go in that room because only she has the keys.
Look here, I have to go.
I will
Sorry
talk
about
again.
that. Okay?